that everyone in this room, every one of you, can become a great speaker. That is not hype, that is not fiction, it's not fantasy. It actually is true that everyone in this room could become a great speaker. You have that potential. Let me give you an example of someone who was not great, but became great. Does everybody know him?
Yes.
Winston Churchill? He's the Prime Minister of England during World War II. Guess what? When he was a boy, he had a speech impediment. He had a stammer, he stammered, he had a lisp, so he had a very difficult time speaking. And then, when he became a member of Parliament, the first time he got in front of everybody, he forgot what to say. And for 3 minutes, he just stood there, and everybody laughed at him. So he said this, never again. And from that point, at age 29, he made it his life goal to become a great speaker. And anyway, here's what, this guy is the foreign minister for England right now. Here's a quote from him. Would someone read that for me? Tudor, would you read that? Can you read that for me?
Yes. By the time he became a prime minister at the age of 65, Churchill had become a masterful orator, one of the greatest speakers of the world has ever known.
Thank you. His speeches had a direct impact on the outcome of World War II. And this is a man who had a speech impediment, who forgot how to speak in front of people, but he worked at it and he became good. And I know someone else who had a terrible time at speaking in front of people because he was so afraid. This guy. I know him personally. Growing up in high school and everything, I would refuse to get in front of people. During my university days, I was studying to be a physical education teacher, a sport teacher. So we had to get in front of the class and take turns teaching each other. So I had to teach tennis. I mean, I can really remember this. I was teaching a tennis class, and I was shaking and doing everything, not knowing what to say. And everybody in my class, just like with Winston Churchill, laughed at me. Right? Except I didn't do what he did. I didn't say never again. I just said, okay, I'll never speak again. So I didn't want to have anything to do with it. The things changed for me, honestly, a lot as I got older. When I went to Bible school when I was like 30. And I had to take a class on how to preach in front of people. And we had to take, and just like we do here, we had to do it in front of the class. And you know what I did the very first time I was supposed to do it? I didn't do it. Because the night before, I stayed up all night vomiting. Okay? I'm telling you, I was very intensely afraid of speaking in front of people. So I'm telling you, if I can get up and speak in front of people, now I'm the national champion. If I can do that, believe me, anybody can do it with some work and a lot of work actually. The question is, why would you want to become a good speaker? Why? Well, first of all, when you learn to speak in front of people, it gives you a lot of confidence. And that confidence impacts every area of your life, not just in speaking. Because most people do have a fear of speaking. And once you get over that fear, then your other little fears don't seem such a big deal. So overcoming the fear of speaking helps you a lot. Having that confidence will do this. You'll be able to have more influence. Because if you could have the ability to speak in front of people, you're going to be able to say things that can change people's lives. And so your fire can light other people's fire. Then those influences result in opportunities opening up for you. When you can speak well, people are going to ask you to come in front. I have an example of a friend who works for Leroy Merlin in Bucharest. He started out just the basic lowest level in the floor, stocking the shelves and everything. Eventually, after 2 or 3 years, he became a head of one department. Then the head guys from France or whatever came and wanted all the department heads to give a presentation. Well, Jean is his name. He had spoken a lot in front of people before. So every department head got up there, and he was the only one that did a good job. Everybody else was like, and guess what happened? He was put on the fast track to management. So you can see that if you speak well, it's going to open opportunities for you. And when opportunities come to you, then eventually cash, because if you get advancement in your profession or whatever it is, there's an opportunity to make more money. People who speak well generally make more money than those that don't. So those are some of your advantages. Now today, what I want to focus on is the big picture of what's involved. Because in 20 minutes, I can't give you all the details. but I can give you some big ideas to think about, and then use those as a starting place to figure out yourself how to become a good speaker. Now, we start out with a foundation. This foundation I'm going to share with you applies to anything you want to learn, not just being speaking, but anything you want to learn. These are the things I've learned over my lifetime. So I encourage you to think about it and put some of these things to use for yourself if you want to learn something, whether it's speaking or anything else. Now here's a quote. Nellie, can you read that for us?
99% of being an expert is nailing down the basics. Establish a basis, a solid foundation, a routine, and the rest will follow.
Understand what he said is true. That you need to establish a solid foundation about how you learn things. And if you do that, if you build a process of this, it'll help you become an expert in what you do. And here's something from Michelangelo. Can you read that for us, huh?
Me?
Yeah.
The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that is too low and we reach it.
Right? So in other words, generally we don't put our high enough standards for us. We just want to get by. We're mostly get by people. We don't strive to be excellent. But if you do strive to be excellent, you will become better. Now the beginning point for anything in learning is your mindset. How you think about life. You know, a glass half empty, a glass half full, that's a mindset. Are you always looking at life and what's wrong, or are you looking at what's good about life? That's a mindset. So you want to have a growth mindset when it comes to learning. Okay, here's some of the things that are involved in a growth mindset. All right? You need to be proactive. You need commitment. You have to make the commitment to doing it. You need to strive for excellence, not perfection. You want to be a self-learner. You don't wait for other people to show you. You figure out how to do it. And we have Google, so you can do a lot of searching on your own looking for information. Discipline. Continually doing something over and over. Like, you know, preparing for the speech after doing it for a month. It's getting harder because you're doing it so much, but you have to stay disciplined and practice to get better. Right? Effort. It takes work. Feedback is very important, right? We all know that if you want to be good at something, you need feedback from other people. And this next one is probably the most important when it comes to speaking. At least this is one of the things. You have to have a really good mindset about this next thing in order to become good. And that is how you deal with fear. You know, fear is a bully. It wants to limit you. It wants to keep you down. So we have to face our fears. We need to lean into our fear. We need to go through our fear. Whoops. And back. We don't want to sit back. Growing up, for me, honestly, I would usually just sit down and avoid the fear. But you never excel, you never get better if you always let fear hinder you. So I encourage you, deal with the fear. And if you come to Toastmasters, you find even doing tabletop, that you can be really scared. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. So learn to go through your fears and don't let them stop you. Also, you need to develop a system of learning, a step-by-step process on how you can learn something. For Toastmasters, they have 10 projects for doing the speaking, for the communication, and 10 projects for the leadership. They give you a step-by-step process. And I also have my own 15-step process that I use when I mentor people on how to speak. And I'm going to put this material together and make it available for everybody, so you'll see it later. Here's another quote. Mihaela, can you read that for us?
Goals can provide direction and even push you forward in the short term, but eventually a well-designed system will always win. Having a system is what matters. Committing to the process is what makes the difference. James Clear. Thank you.
And there's some person here that I've already shared this with, and she's learned from it. Now, let me give you an example, or at least an analogy to this process that we need to go through. All right, as a speaker right now, where you're at the base. This is where you're at right now as a speaker. But your goal is the top, to be a great speaker. You have to figure out how to get up there. So you need a map and figure out the steps to get there. So this is what we do with speaking. You need to develop a program or a system that can help you learn how to become better. Then you also need to establish a routine on how you learn. You have the system, but then you have to use it, right? Now the secret is, this next slide, this guy, okay, what I want to say about it, this guy saying something about using 1 hour a day and how you can improve. Well, maybe you can't do a whole hour a day, but maybe 15 minutes. But I want you to think about it, the principle at least. Simone, can you read that?
Sure. 1 hour per day of study will put you at the top of your field within 3 years. Within 5 years, you'll be a national authority. In 7 years, you can be one of the best people in the world at what you do. Earl Nightingale.
Now here's the thing. Most of us, what we do is we cram the week before we have to give a speech, or whatever we do, an exam in college, right? We just cram beforehand. But that doesn't help us to really learn it. Because our brain needs to be rewired. And so if we're doing a little bit each day, our brain is going to rewire much better than if we try to cram at the end. So if you want to become a good speaker, spend 15 minutes a day. And then maybe some days you're going to have to spend more time, especially when you're doing speeches. But if you set aside a little time each day, you'll be much better off. And I know a lot of you, some of you have families, it's very difficult, but to fit in time. And another way you can do this is you figure out something else you already do and attach that time to it. Like, okay, after I eat dinner, I'm going to spend 15 minutes working on speech stuff. Whatever it is, something you do in the evening, you say, okay, this is when I'm going to do it. Or you get up in the morning, say, I'm going to spend 15 minutes in the morning. But you find a time, and if connect it with something else, it'll help you to be more disciplined. Okay, so what is the secret of becoming a great speaker? It's learning how to develop a system and a routine of the things you're doing as a speaker that will help you become better. So the secret is learning a system and developing a routine. Those are the secrets. But here's the things you need to focus on. There's 3 main things we all need to focus on if we're going to become better. The first thing is you need to get to know your audience. That's the most important thing. Now in Toastmasters, it's not such a big deal because we know each other and we already have. But when you go out to speak out in the real world, the more you know about the audience, the better speech you can put together. So that's very important. And you need to learn how to do that. For my speeches, I've actually sent out like monkey survey and sent out surveys to people that were coming and asked them certain questions to help me figure out what to say. You can also, if you're speaking somewhere, you can talk to the person who asked you to come or the person who's in charge of it to ask them what they really want you to speak about. Or you can find out who some of the people are coming and you can contact them. So there's ways of learning how to figure out what your audience already knows. Then you have to work on your content. Great speeches need great content. And this is a challenging thing for me. It takes me a long time to figure out how to write things down. But here's a secret I learned. Just sit down and start writing something. And then from then it gets easier. But when you just sit there and look, you go, nothing happens. So just start writing something down. What you will do is you'll take the knowledge of your audience, research your topic, determine what your purpose of your speech is, and then make an outline, and then write out your speech. That's kind of the process you'll go through, and it really helps a lot to do it that way. Then you need to practice your delivery. Delivery has to do with knowing the words. First of all, you want to practice, get to the point where you know the words quite well. And what happens at first, you have to transition writing, what you wrote, into speaking words. Because sometimes when we speak, we don't speak like we write. So you have to kind of convert it and make some little changes to the words. Then you become comfortable with it. Then after you become comfortable with the words, then you practice on your body gestures. Don't worry about it at first. Don't try to do everything at once. Get comfortable with the words, then work on your gestures, and then after you're comfortable with that, work on your voice. Because most of the time when we do speaking, most people, they come up the front and they have this kind of speaking voice and this way of being, but it's not natural. And they kind of be monotone. But you want to be able to go up and down and have some enthusiasm in your voice and in your actions. This will help a lot. Right? So again, audience is very important. Know them. Deliver or develop great content and practice your delivery. The more you practice, the better you'll get. Okay, now as far as your goal as a speaker, what is your goal when you get up in front to speak in front of people? Let's start by going over what's not the goal. Here's what's not the goal. The goal is not to kill your audience. Right? Don't bore them to death. Don't give them so much information their heads explode. But rather, figure out how you can do it. Don't do the things that make it so people dislike it. Too much information, too monotone, no enthusiasm. These are things that make it very difficult on a speech. So what should you do? The most important thing you need to do when you stand up in front of people is connect with them. And the way you do that is you come up, you have a smile on your face, you have open gestures, you're not like nervous and like this. Be open, be energetic. This is the way you connect with people right away. And then what you want to say is after you connect with the people, you want to connect them to what you're speaking about. And so today, how did I start out? I said everyone here can be a great speaker. So right away I was connecting you to what I was going to talk about. So always figure out how you can do that. Sometimes you'll use a quote, sometimes a joke, sometimes a story. But make sure it connects your audience to what you're saying. And do it as direct as possible. Connect them. Let them see why it's important for them to be listening. Okay, then during the speech, you want to keep your audience engaged. Again, it's going to be with your voice, your body, and with the structure of your speech. Does it make logical sense? Is it simple? Is it clear? These are the things you want when you're speaking. As long as it makes sense, people will connect with you. The other thing is, make it as short as possible for what you're talking about. A lot of times we speak way too much. We can cut off words. I remember one of my, I think it was my third or fourth speech in Toastmasters. Once I got it down, written and everything, and practiced it, it was 14 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh. I had to get it down to 7 minutes. And believe me, it was a lot of work to get it down to 7 minutes. But when I did, I realized, man, the speech is much better now. And so that was a lesson for me, is learning how to say things simply and short and clear makes all the difference in people engaging with you as you speak. Right? Then at the end, when you're closing, what you want, your goal is to change your audience in some way. Maybe you'll change how they think, change how they feel, change what they do. But your goal is always to see some kind of change. Now, again, connect with your audience. It's very important. Remember that. Engage your audience and work on changing your audience. Here's what you want. You want to transform your audience. You want to make them a more beautiful version of themselves than they are right now. This is what you want to do for your audience. So when you do this, you need to make a call to action. Remember this term, call to action. Somewhere at the end of your speech, you want to call your audience to do something with what you've shared with them. It's very important. Here's another quote. Bianca, can you read that for us?
The purpose of a speech is to move people to action. You point an audience to a place where they want to be, a distant hilltop, a better future, a more stable company, a more connected life. You make them dissatisfied with where they are now, and attempt them with a golden tomorrow. And then you've got to show them how to get there. Or at least you do if you want to be great.
All right. So be great. Now, I can tell you in 9 words, and most of the members here already know this. I can give you in 9 words what it takes to be a great speaker, simply. Okay? Ready? All right? Prepare, prepare, prepare. Practice, practice, practice. Speak, speak, speak. That's all it takes to become a great speaker. Now let's look at each one of those. When you're preparing, again, do your research. Figure out what needs to be spoken about. I'm just going to kind of review what I already said. Think of the purpose of your speech. Then write out an outline. And then from your outline, write out what you want to speak about. On your practice, remember, you want to practice the words first, get comfortable with them, then practice your body gestures, and then practice your voice. And when you do all that, eventually after a few weeks, you get pretty good at it. But the more you practice, the better you'll become. And believe me, to be excellent, you need to practice. You know, actions of excellence done over time become habits of excellence. So if you want to be good, you need to do things over time, not just right once or twice. It takes time. Right? Speak, speak, speak. Here's what that means. Every opportunity you have to speak in front of people, take it and figure out ways to do that. How can I get up in front of people? One way is to join Toastmasters. But in any opportunities you have in life, figure ways to get in front of people and practice, because the only way you're going to get better is to speak. Okay. Annie, you want to read that for us?
Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. talent will not. Nothing is more common than a successful man with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelict. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent.
By the way, he's the 30th President of the United States. Just so you know. But in persistence, this is the idea. Speak a lot. Be persistent in speaking. Now, as we come to the end of our journey today, let's remember, here's the keys to doing it. Build a solid foundation. Your mindset is critical. Defeat fear. Develop a learning system. Establish a learning routine. And join Cerner Toastmasters Club. This is how you become great. I can tell you that if I could go back in time and tell my younger self, I would say, join Toastmasters and learn how to speak. Right? Be equipped to impact your world for good. Right? And for those of you, if you want the notes or anything, the slides, I have an expanded slide. Well, it's interesting how this is not my computer, so I don't know if you can read that. Dolce. By the way, you see those flowers? You know what those are called? Those are sweet williams. Right? That's what they're called. So sweet Dolce Willow. So if you want that, if you're not a member here, I'll send it to all the members, but I can give you the information. So you all, remember, you can become a great speaker. Work hard, and it'll open doors that you will find surprising. Thank you very much.